Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is the greatest time of the day. From the center of the universe, New York City, it's the main event you've been waiting for. It's time to go in the cage with Cyclone.
And your Messiah has come home once again. It is Fat Man sweating degrees outside here today, this Monday, May 20th. And if you're not a fat man, it means it's over 80 degrees. I really want to fall back. I want to fall back. Anyways, we have so much to talk about. We're going to be talking, obviously, MMA. We got some wrestling to talk about. But we're going to start it all off with the sweet science. And we have a special guest on the hotline. He is the boxing prophet, Richard Solomon. Richard, how are you?
I'm good, Cyclone. Huge fan of your work, and let me just say that I like the way it sounds. The Cyclone and the boxing prophet sounds like a horror movie.
well, I am a mess. So, so right off the bat, I gotta ask you, when was it that you first fell in love with boxing?
Probably the late 70s. Everyone has their sports heroes growing up, and Muhammad Ali, with the exception of course, my parents. Muhammad Ali was my hero. Unfortunately, I was a little bit too young to see him in his prime when he fought Smoking Joe Frazier and Ken Norton 3 times, respectively. But I saw Ali at the tail end of his career when he was beaten by Leon Spinks. And then he beat Spinks in the rematch to recapture the heavyweight championship for, at the time, was a record 3rd time. And then, of course, he got destroyed by Larry Holmes in what was one of the most depressing fights I've ever seen. And then he ended his career by losing a decision to Trevor Berbick. But I always loved Ali. He turned me on to boxing. And ever since then, it was just my favorite sport. It became a passion of mine.
So what, if you had to choose like a Sophie's Choice sort of deal, what would you say is the one thing that you love most about it?
The most I love about boxing is that there are no teammates, and it's just you against another man. It's one-on-one competition. And obviously there are judges who turn in horrible decisions, and there are incompetent referees. But for the most part, you win and lose on your own. And I just love the sweet science of it. A lot of people, I love wars. I love great fights. The Thriller in Manila, of course. The first Arturo Gatti, Mickey Ward fight. The first Diego Corrales, Jose Luis Castillo fight. But I also love the fact that it's hit and not get hit. A lot of people are turned off by Floyd Mayweather Jr., his style in the ring. And back in the 90s, it was Pernell Sweet Pea Whitaker. Also Long Island's own James Buddy McGirt. I used to be a huge fan of. I like boxers. I like fighters who jab, move around the ring. Andre Ward once said that the jab has become a lost art in boxing. And it really has. And people, like I said, people like toe-to-toe action. But I always admired boxing for the sweet science aspect of it all. Just hit and not get hit. That type of style.
Similarly, what would you say is the one, if you had to choose one thing that you hate more than anything about boxing?
Probably the politics about how you can't make. Hopefully, we'll get to this later on in the show. But all the boxing politics, and you can't make that the two fights that diehard boxing fans like you and I would pay good money to see right now. Errol Spence Jr. against Terrence Crawford, and Anthony Joshua against Deontay Wilder can't get made because of boxing politics. And I also, can't stand incompetent judges. But, the thing is, Cyclone, I don't really think it's incompetence. I think it's more corruption. I mean, you take a look and you go back years ago when Floyd Mayweather fought Canelo Alvarez. Floyd Mayweather won at least 9 out of 12 rounds, and one judge, C.J. Ross, who will live in infamy, who was later banned from the sport, she scored the fight a draw. That's not incompetence. That's corruption. So, and I have a lot of judges that are good friends of mine, so I usually don't like to call out judges on the air. But it's stuff like that give boxing a real black eye, and it turns them away, because casual fans probably turned into the Mayweather-Canelo fight and said, how am I supposed to take this sport seriously and watch another prize fight again? So those are the things that are hurting the sport that you and I both love so passionately.
Why do you think boxing's gotten that rep to be dirty, to be underhanded?
It's just the way it is. It's been that way for centuries. I mean, if you remember the famous movie Raging Bull, Jake LaMotta had to throw a fight due to pressure from the mob. There were even rumors to this day that Sonny Liston took a dive against Cassius Clay in their rematch because he was threatened by the mob. It's just really been kind of crooked, and the fact that the fact that house fighters always seem to get the decision when they fight trial horses per se. If it's a close fight, they're always going to give it to the prospect over the veteran, because the prospect has to keep his undefeated record intact. And it's like that in other combat sports as well, but I guess more so in boxing. And it's gotten to the point where, it's a little bit ridiculous. There are fights where, let's say, an undefeated fighter fights a guy who has 6 losses, and it's a 10-round fight. And on my scorecard, the undefeated fighter wins 6 rounds to 4. You'll have judges that'll score it 9-1, 10-0, all for the undefeated fighter. So it's not, it's not good enough for the undefeated fighter to win. He has to win convincingly on the scorecards, which kind of annoys me as well. But that's just the way the sport has been. I like to look at the pros instead of the cons, and dwell on the positives about all the great fights that have taken place over the last couple of years and will be made this year. And just the fact that now, as you're well aware of, boxing is literally on every channel with the invention of all of these apps. Now more than ever, you can view boxing almost like this past weekend, for instance. We had about 4 shows on 4 different channels, all in a 2-day span, which is great for the sport as far as I'm concerned.
Now, you mentioned Raging Bull before. Do you have a go-to favorite boxing movie?
Oh, by far, the first Rocky was great. The first Rocky will always be my favorite boxing movie because, of course, it wasn't about winning. It was about going the distance. And I remember I was such a young kid at the time. I think I was about 7, 8 years old, and I didn't get it. And I came home crying, and my parents said, "Rich, didn't you love the movie?" And I said, "No, I hated it. He lost." And they had to explain to me all about, how he was the big underdog and that he didn't have to beat Apollo Creed. All he had to do was give it his all. and last the full 15 rounds. And that's a movie I could watch, 7 days a week. The first Rocky, and of course, Raging Bull's a classic. That would be in my top three, and I guess the third one would be $1 Million Baby with Clint Eastwood and Hilary Swank. I like that movie as well.
See, I have a smile on my face the second you said Rocky, because the whole entire Rocky series, I can basically say verbatim all of them, including the Creed movies. So I am a huge Rocky fan.
Yeah, I used to act out some famous scenes in high school because I was always the class clown. So when people wanted to chuckle, they would say, "Solomon, give us a little Rocky too," and I would just imitate what Mickey would say to Rocky when he was training him. So it was pretty. Everywhere. If you're a boxing fan, it's very hard not to love all the Rocky movies, except, of course, Rocky V.
See, I knew you were gonna say it, and I gotta tell you, I like that one too. I don't have an issue with it.
Say that again?
I don't have an issue with it. I liked Rocky V slash
there were
Balboa.
There were bits and pieces of it that I enjoyed. The fact that I don't like how he lost his money. Paulie made bad investments with the what was it? The tax guy.
Yes.
He made bad investments, and it was just. But I like the fact that he went back to his roots. Because a lot of fighters lose their money and they have to go back to the drawing board, so to speak. And he went back to his roots, but the whole street fight was a little ridiculous. And as good as Antonio Tarver was, I thought he was good at least in Rocky Balboa, which was the sixth installment of the franchise. I just didn't like Tommy Morrison. Of course, may he rest in peace. I always enjoyed his fighting style. I thought he was just a horrible actor. I didn't think he came across well in that film at all.
All right, so let's delve into heavyweight since we're on the topic of, since Tommy was, a big guy himself. Let me start here with you. Do you think Jarrell Miller has done enough where he needs to be permanently banned for life? No ands, no ifs, no buts, just gone.
It's tough to say. I mean, he failed 3 tests, 3 different samples he failed. And the third sample was a drug that you can only use by injection. So it's just, it doesn't look good. I believe he only got a 6-month suspension. But listen, it's tough for me to say. He obviously went on social media, apologized. You could see he was very distraught. And he's not a bad fighter at all. I mean, he has talent. He reminds me of Greg Page and Tony Tubbs from the 80s, except he had, more stamina and more power than both of them. But it's tough to say, but I'm certainly not against it. If it was me, I wouldn't ban him permanently, but I could see why some people would. So that's where I stand on that.
What do you think's crazier? Okay, Deontay wanting minimum $100 million to fight AJ, so he says, or the fact that, especially since Deontay's biggest payday up till this point has been $14 million, to now want minimum $100 million is a huge jump. Or do you think it's crazier that Errol Spence wants a 60-40 split against Terrence Crawford?
Yeah, it's interesting because at first I thought it was Eddie Hearn and AJ who went out of their way to duck Deontay Wilder a couple of years ago, and now I'm beginning to think it's Shelley Finkel and Al Heyman who really don't want to fight. I mean, it's tough to say. I think AJ, if you're AJ, you don't really need Deontay. I mean, let's keep it real. Deontay Wilder needs Anthony Joshua a lot more than Anthony Joshua needs Deontay Wilder. I mean, AJ can go to Cardiff, Wales, and he could fight Carlos Takam and 80,000 people will come see the fight. I mean, you can't. And Deontay Wilder, although he's a brutal puncher, he attracts like 14,000 people wherever he fights. So it's just the fight has to be made. It's the most important fight, I think, in boxing that can be made now, more so than Errol Spence against Terrence Crawford, only because it's heavyweights, and boxing fans who aren't mainstream fans will tune in, because remember, we never got to see Lennox Lewis against Riddick Bowe. And I remember, because I actually went to the first Riddick Bowe Evander Holyfield fight. I was there live. I think it was a 24th birthday present from my parents, so I flew to Vegas with my older brother. And Riddick Bowe defeated Holyfield, and Lennox Lewis knocked out Razor Ruddock. And the whole world thought we were going to get a unification bout between Bowe and Lewis. And it never happened. And so when they interviewed him on Sky Sports, after he destroyed Dominic Breazeale over the weekend, Deontay Wilder even said, "We don't want another Bowe Lewis situation. Just let us do our thing, be patient, and you'll see the fight." So I'm guessing that they're both going to milk it for all it's worth. They're going to take on challengers who aren't that great, like Wilder just took on Breazeale. And in a couple of weeks, we'll have AJ fighting at Madison Square Garden, which should be amazing. The atmosphere is going to be insane, against Andy Ruiz Jr. And I believe that the fight will happen. You know, with the exception of Bo Holyfield, most of the super fights that boxing fans dream of eventually come to fruition, even if it's 5 years too late. Perfect example is Mayweather-Pacquiao. Of course, they didn't fight in their prime, but they did eventually fight each other. And, you know, Trinidad fought Oscar de la Hoya, and Mike Tyson fought Lennox Lewis. Those are the two key fights. Remember, when Lennox Lewis fought Mike Tyson, and when Lennox Lewis fought Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather fought Manny Pacquiao, HBO and Showtime, respectively, had to work together to make those fights happen. So if there's big enough money, you have to believe that all these super fights will happen. And Errol Spence is in the same situation with Terrence Crawford that AJ was or is with Wilder. Errol Spence is part of Al Heyman's crew. And unfortunately for Terrence Crawford, he's part of ESPN, Bob Arum, and there's a lack of welterweights with Bob Arum. I mean, he just beat Amir Khan, who's way past his prime. There are rumors that next up for Terrence Crawford is Kell Brook, which will totally be a black eye for Crawford. I mean, Kell Brook is shot. I think Amir Khan could beat Kell Brook if the fight was announced tomorrow. So I don't know what Arum is doing there. And Errol Spence, the world is his oyster. I mean, you could fight the winner of Pacquiao against Keith Thurman Jr., which is going to take place over the summer. Also, there were rumors that Danny Garcia might fight Mikey Garcia. So, obviously, Errol Spence just beat Mikey Garcia. But if Danny Garcia wins that fight, Errol Spence could fight him. And there were, I mean, I heard that Errol Spence was supposed to fight Sean Porter over the summer, but rumor has it that Errol Spence is slowly but surely pricing himself out of that fight. And I don't know why, because I've always believed that Sean Porter is an overachiever. I think he's a little tiny bit overrated. You know, he's the type of fighter that smothers you and headbutts you and throws a lot of punches to your arms and doesn't land clean shots. I actually thought that in his last fight, the Cuban Ugas beat him, and that was one of my great predictions. I said that on my scorecard I would have Ugas winning, but because Sean Porter is the quote-unquote money fighter, he'll get the split decision victory, and that's exactly what happened. Porter was awarded with a very controversial split decision, but I think Errol Spence would not only beat Sean Porter, but knock him out, or at least stop him by TKO. So it boggles my mind if that fight doesn't come to fruition. But I do honestly believe if you put a gun to my head right now and say, Prophet, will Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, as well as Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, will these fights both happen? I say yes. They might not happen right away. It might take a couple of years, but they will both happen. The only concern I have about the Crawford-Spence fight is that Spence is a huge welterweight, and he may not be able to stay at 147 for a long time. And there are rumors out there. I don't know if it's started by the Twitter people or what have you not, but there are rumors that Spence, I don't think he'll jump up to 160 to face Canelo, but I would not be shocked at all if they offered Spence like $20 to $30 million, and he faces Canelo at like a catch weight, if for some reason the Crawford fight never materializes.
Now, look, there's mandatory opponents for everybody, basically. So why can't commissions just say, you know what, we have to have a unified champion. You are fighting this guy this day, no ands, ifs, or buts, and let it happen. Just let it happen.
In a perfect world, that would be the case, but the alpha, as I like to call them, there are sanctioning fees involved, and that's why you have basically 3 champions or 4 champions per weight class. I mean, back in the old days, there were only, in the 40s and 50s, there were only 8 weight classes. Now you have 17 weight classes, and you have different promoters, and no one's loyal to each other. So it's very, very tough. You know, it's tough with the different promoters, and now you have, and it's good for boxing, but it's also bad because you have ESPN Plus, the app, and you have the Zone, and all these different networks that are showing boxing, and they're all trying to steal fighters away from each other. And you know, like I said, there's no such thing as loyalty. I mean, Mikey Garcia sat out 2 years, wasted 2 years of his prime because he didn't want to deal with Bob Arum anymore. I mean, this is where we're at. And Mikey Garcia had so many great fights that were there for the taking, and he said, screw it. I don't want to deal with Bob Arum anymore. And he wasted basically 2 years of his life. And this is where we're at. And it's not only with boxing, it's with all sports. You know, fighters especially today, I noticed, they don't care about their legacies. When I was growing up in the 80s, you saw Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas the Hitman Hearns, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and Roberto Duran. They all fought each other, not necessarily for the money, although of course that helped, but it was for their legacy. Let's see who the best man is. And now they fighters price themselves out of fights, but it's like that in every sport: basketball, hockey, football. It's not about legacies anymore. It's about how much money I can get. You know, show me the money. To take a quote from the infamous Jerry Maguire movie.
So,
in a perfect world, the best would fight the best all the time, and that used to be the way it was. But let's face it, we've become a society now in sports, not only in boxing but in every sport, where money, you know, it may even be more important than championships. You know, people leave teams. They don't even who can win championships just to get more money to play on a team that won't even make the playoffs. So it's just the world we live in today, Cyclone. It's unfortunate.
So speaking of money, and before we let you go, by the way, I want to thank you for your time, for stopping by. How can everybody get a hold of you and all your great picks?
Yes, well. You can always go to realcombatmedia.com, and I'd like to thank the CEO, Anthony L. Gonzalez, who has been instrumental in helping me build my Boxing Prophet brand. You can check my Facebook page, Richard Solomon, or Twitter, Boxing Prophet 68. And every week I post my picks, and it's anywhere between 10 to 12 fights per week. And it's not only the main fights, Cyclone, it's undercard fights, obscure fights that no one even knows is happening except for hardcore boxing fans. And so I've been on a tremendous roll lately. Over the last 10 weeks, I've accumulated a record of 114 wins, 3 losses, and 6 draws. And people will say, well, that's impossible. And I urge all those people to go on my Facebook wall, to look at the timeline when I made the picks, and you'll know that I take my predictions very seriously. And also, Cyclone, a lot of people have asked me, where did you get the name, The Boxing Prophet? And real quickly, because I know that you have other things to take care of on your show, is that back in February of 1990, I told the whole world that James Buster Douglas was going to knock out Mike Tyson. People laughed at me. They said, what are you smoking? And, of course, it happened. And we all know, we all saw the signs coming. Tyson was floored in a sparring session by Greg Page. He was living it up and partying in Japan. He was fighting with Robin Givens. Lord knows what drugs he was taking. And James Buster Douglas was training like a beast. I believe he had lost his mother a couple of weeks prior to the fight. He was in tremendous shape. And Buster Douglas was always an underachiever. I thought he had a great jab. And we all know what happened after he beat Tyson. He got fat, out of shape, and Holyfield knocked him out in 3 one-sided rounds. But I still contend to this day, Cyclone, that if the same James Buster Douglas who beat Mike Tyson showed up against Evander Holyfield, he would have beaten Holyfield as well.
Cool. And on that note, I want to once again say thank you very much for stopping by.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, Cyclone.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care, my friend.
All right. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Wow. A lot to take in. And guys, we have so much more to get to. I want to remind everybody, click share, pretty please. Damn it, pretty please, click share. Check out CycloneComedy.com. I still have that massive sale. Go on the shop page, buy something, and I'm sending you a free gift as well. So it's 2 things for the price of 1 thing. Check out EffectiveAggression.com. And when we get back, we're going to talk some MMA, and we're going to kick things off with wrestling right after this.
This is Frank Edgar. This is the Barbarian Tim Bosch.
I'm World Series of Fighting undefeated lightweight champion Justin Gaethje.
MMA legend, UFC Hall of Famer, Iceman. Chuck it up. If you got the guts, step in the cage with Cyclone.
And we is back. Okay, so let's talk some Money in the Bank, right? I gotta give the WWE credit. Everything was just about well booked on the card. I gotta say that everyone pushed hard. Everyone showed up. Some curious things. Here's the deal. And I'm not going to rip on WWE fans, but the WWE is the only combat sport that's really successful still with pay-per-view model, because MMA fans, it's not the model anymore. It's streaming. Boxing, for the most part, is streaming. No idea why. And for the life of me, I can't figure it out. And I've tried to think about it. Why the WWE just doesn't air everything on the network, their own network. They don't need the pay-per-view model, but yet the fans keep shelling out the cash. I don't know why. You put things behind paywalls, and it's hard to get people to give up their hard-earned money. And yet, it seems like no matter what Vince does, WWE fans just say, here, take my money. Not shocked that Bailey wound up winning the women's Money in the Bank. I mean, look, I'm not personally a fan of the helicoptering the ladder. Not a fan of that. But every woman in that match brought it. Once again, women are showing themselves in combat sports. They're legit. Okay? It's no more, oh, you pretty little thing, and no, these women are serious athletes, and pound for pound, I think they're better than a lot of the guys. Honest truth. Kind of shocked, not shocked that Brock Lesnar winds up taking the men's Money in the Bank. Look, he was offered a certain amount of money to take on Daniel Cormier. He was in the USADA testing pool. He turned down that money and got out of the USADA testing pool. So, here's the deal. If he turns around and says in August, September, October, hey, I want to come back to MMA, and specifically to the UFC, 6 months he needs to be back in that USADA testing pool. And I don't think that's happening. I think that I'm retired. I don't think he's coming back to MMA ever again. Now that the UFC is no longer a pay-per-view model, but a streaming model, and they don't need the money anymore because the money's coming in no matter what. If one person watches or a bazillion people watch, UFC's still making their money. But that being said, it's interesting to see that Brock has decided to come back to the WWE. I figured he would have ridden off into the sunset, spent some time on his farm / ranch up in Canada, and just not go away, but go away. I don't think Shane versus Miz needed to be on a Money in the Bank card. The card was good enough without. They could have saved that for another card, as far as I'm concerned. I give the night a solid B-. I think that's a good grade. I like the fact that you can cash in your Money in the Bank immediately, which, for all intents and purposes, wink, wink, like this, sets up a different type of storyline. For example, look, everyone knew that Becky Lynch was not retaining both belts. I'm willing to bet you Hunter, Steph, Vince all gave her the choice of which belt to drop. So the fact that she dropped, what she did isn't shocking. I like the fact that Bailey and Charlotte going for the belt and finishing it off. I just wonder now, is there going to be some sort of a storyline between Bailey and Becky Lynch? All these B's are making my brain freeze. Another B. But I would love to see those two, because those two are truly, no offense to Charlotte, no offense to Carmella or anybody else, Ember Moon. I think that a Becky Lynch and Bailey storyline might be fun to watch. So what we're going to have to do, due to time restraints, is we're going to need to take another quick little break right now. But first, guys, I keep saying it, share the show, please. It would mean a lot to me. Check out Psyche Prods on Facebook. You guys can enter a raffle, win a cool prize, like the Red Hot Kenny Hodgkins, for example. Check out effectiveaggression.com. With all those t-shirts and warm weather coming back strong right now, great prices, great t-shirts. Check them out. And also keep your eyes out for that Tracy Morgan signed glove as well. That'll be up on the site soon. So when we come back, the rest of the show is all MMA. Right after this.
Hi, I'm Jim Miller.
This is Dan Merigliotta.
I'm Derek Brunson.
I'm Nick the Carney Lentz, and you're locked into the Cage with Cyclone.
It's like it seems every single week, write the schedule, plan out the show perfectly, and seconds before the show starts, breaking news. And I just go, well, there goes that script. Happened again today. There's 2 breaking stories. Well, 1.5. First of all, PFL heavyweight champion Felipe Lins is now out of the season with an undisclosed injury. Of course, the second I get home, that's when it will become a disclosed injury, and I won't be able to discuss it fully. But that's really crushing because Lins was definitely on the short list of heavyweights to repeat as champion, win another $1 million. Don't know. I kind of, not even looking at the heavyweight roster, I kind of now really like Kevin Tiller. His punching power is pure. Earlier talking about Deontay Wilder, Kevin Tiller has one punch knockout power in both his hands. So, que sera for Felipe Lins, which, like I said, it's a big loss for the PFL, losing him just a couple weeks before his fight. Another breaking story. In the city this afternoon, unbeknownst to yours truly, which I don't know why it was unbeknownst to me. I should be on these things, which slipped through my fingers like O.J. Simpson fumbling away a bloody glove. There was a press conference with Artem Lobov and Paulie Malignaggi, and look, I love my Brooklyn guys that become pro athletes, but Paulie is so out of line. The first time they faced off, Paulie took a swing at Artem. They got face to face. They started chirping. Artem pointed his finger at Paulie, and Paulie spit at Artem. Really, Paulie? Really? You gonna spit on him? You're making people like me root against you. Okay? You're out of your prime. You're no longer fighting for a couple years now. Paulie, Artem, say what you will, has been consistent. And he knows what it's like to now fight bare knuckle. Paulie, you don't. You have no clue. Paulie, if he catches you, your face is going to be broken. And that brings me to a person whose face got broken this past weekend, Sage Northcutt. Now look, I harp and I harp and I harp until I'm blue like Papa Smurf in the face. One championship, those fighters are so much below the radar. Now look, Cosmo Alexander is not to be taken lightly. He is a 7-time kickboxing champion. I don't know why Sage didn't right off the bat shoot for a takedown. That's what I would have done. But 29 seconds in for Sage to get blasted. And the fact of the matter is, broken orbital bone and 8 cheek fractures. I mean, he broke his face. And here's the deal. You know you've been really clocked if when you get hit, your hair stands up like you stick your finger into an electrical socket. Because that's what happened before Sage face planted. Now look, I think Sage is at the right weight class. I think Sage just needs more time to adjust to the fighters over there. And I think he didn't... I can't say he didn't have a good game plan because 30 seconds into a fight, you can't see a game plan. Shinya Aoki losing his lightweight championship on that same card to Christian Lee, who is Andrea Lee's younger brother. So now brother and sister are both champions. They are flying under the radar. Gary Tonin improving to 5-0. And eventually, I see Gary Tonin coming back stateside. I don't know if it'll be the UFC. I don't know if it'll be Bellator. I'm not going to harbor a guess. But I definitely see Gary Tonin coming back stateside to fight out the remainder of his fighting career. Really fast, I think Kevin Lee is in the same boat as Sage Northcutt. Look, the move from lightweight to welterweight is okay. Some guys, and we saw it with Max Holloway too, okay, stepping up to fight lightweight, you need time to adjust. Your body has to adjust. You're going in there against bigger guys who have the power, who have the speed, and your stuff doesn't translate just yet. Yes, Kevin Lee was totally destroyed after the fight, but you know what? After you get smoked, you're going to be destroyed. I don't see the UFC doing the 165, which is a shame because every fighter wants the 165-pound division. I want it. A lot of other people in the media want it. We all know that's what makes sense. The chance of that happening is slim and none. I don't know. I think, look, he's depleting himself at lightweight. Welter's a better class for him, except the top guys might pound on him. Kevin Lee is the perfect example of who should be 165. And look, Conor McGregor's in that mold. Nick Diaz, if you want to count him, fits that mold. You know, there's a lot of guys that slide right into that 165 really, really good. And 170 might be too much because I can't see Kevin Lee ever winning a welterweight championship. And unless he goes to a Fight Nights Global, a Cage Warriors, a PFL where he could run rampant over these guys, he's in that catch, that middle no go zone. I do want to congratulate, I have to say this, Rashad Evans being announced as the next member into the Hall of Fame. First thing I heard of when I heard that he was going in was, I remember the day you knocked out my man Chuck Liddell. Look, was Rashad flashy? No. But Rashad, he was workman class. He's sort of like the black version of Michael Bisping. You know, everyone says Michael Bisping was the blue-collar workman type fighter. I think that's what Rashad was. And Rashad, with his connection to the Black Zillions, with what he's done away from the cage. Now look, Bisping's done a billion things away from the cage too. It's good to have Rashad in there. I really do. It's something that is completely, absolutely well deserved. I couldn't whine and crap on that if I wanted to. So I won't. I think him, Bisping, and Rich Franklin are three guys right now that I wasn't really a fan of Rich Franklin, but yeah. Look, he's going in. What am I going to do? Say you're not? Anyways, let's move this bulldog along. When we come back, it's going to be game time. But guys, please, I'm watching. I want you guys that are watching to click share. It would mean so much to me. And don't you want to make me happy? I mean, I think I need to smile. I mean, I don't smile a lot, but clicking share will get me to smile. Obviously, check out effectiveaggression.com and keep it right here on Strong Island Television, because we are done in a little while. It's the Newman Show coming here right after In the Cage with Cyclone. So, like I said, when we come back, it's going to be game time. But first, this quick little break.
I'm Dennis Bermudez. Hi, I'm a creepy Ian McCall.
Yo, I'm Kelvin Gastelum.
This is Mark Goldberg.
Yo, I'm the world's most dangerous man, Hall of Famer Ken Shamrock, and you're getting tapped out in the cage with Cyclone.
Happy anniversary, happy anniversary.
Alrighty, today in MMA history, we got 3 birthdays. Bellator superstar Roger Huerto is 36. Another Bellator star, Alexander Storm Shlemenko, who, God, I've seen him fight twice now in person, and I am a fan of Shlemenko. He turns 1 year younger, he's 35, and turning 31, Scott Asham. And that is this day in MMA history. Nice, short, sweet, and done. Now, we got to get to this. It's everybody's favorite part of the show. Let's do a raffle for a prize. Okie dokie, Smokey. Question number 1 comes from Mr. Rudy Asher. Do you believe Ray Cooper can redeem himself this season in the PFL? And if not, who beats him? Well, I think Magomed Karamov could easily repeat as champion. Although it seems that Ray Cooper, especially fighting his cousin last week, or 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago now, is really laser focused. He's still very quiet, but seems really, really focused. And I think he's zeroed in on winning that championship. But if it's not Magomed beating him, I don't know. Chris Curtis has a lot of punching power. He can beat him. Former Bellator star Andre Fiallo, who Curtis just beat, is a possible winner of a championship. But yeah, I think Ray will win this year. Obviously, I don't know. Nobody knows for sure, but I think Ray will win. But if it's not, it's one of those 3. Question number 2 comes from Kenny Hodgkins, the red hot Kenny Hodgkins, who has a lot of gifts coming his way. What are the chances we see Joshua Wilder fight this year? 0. Nada. Zilch. A big fat goose egg. No chance. No chance in hell. How's that for an answer, Kenny? If they fight, maybe 2020, maybe more likely 2021. And I don't know if I'll be around to see it at that point. But definitely not this year. No way. Not happening. Question number 3 from Mr. Storm Estes. Who do you think is a likely next opponent for Charles Oliveira? I'll give you 2 names, Storm. I like Long Island's own, from not too far away from here, Mr. Fisherman himself, Gregor Gillespie. I think that would be an exciting throwdown. And I also... I like Islam Makhachev to fight Oliveira. One of those two. So I gave you 2 choices to pick from. I really like the Gregor Gillespie one, though. I think that could be a lot of fireworks, though. Now, let's see who wins before we get out of here. The winner of the prize is numero 3. Storm Estes. Congratulations, sir. You and Kenny Hodgkins' winning streak. You win. Your prize will be shipped out tomorrow. Kenny, or your past prizes will be shipped out tomorrow. Plus the other things that you and me discussed will be shipped out tomorrow as well. So, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, until next week, I am Cyclone, reminding each and every one of you, just because you're not an athlete doesn't mean you can't be an athletic supporter. Bye-bye!